Content is intended to provide accurate information, however, is not intended as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult a financial, legal, or tax professional for specific information regarding your individual situation. Opinions expressed and provided are for general informational purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security.
Welcome to Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. McIntire Retirement Services, Northwest Ohio's retirement planning resource.
And welcome into your Game Plan for Retirement, Northwestern Ohio's resource for a common sense approach to planning and the guidance that we need to navigate this complex financial world is Chris McIntire, president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services. Chris, welcome back in.
Hey, good to be with you, Peter. Hope everybody's doing well this weekend.
A pleasure to have you, Chris. I am. Thank you very much, and hope you are as well. And Chris, a lot of people here are trying to get things back on track. We talked a little bit about that last week on the program. Part of that we hit on was doing the right things with your 401k, capturing the match, making sure that we're utilizing all the avenues that we have properly. Today, diving a little bit deeper into that, I want to talk about the pros and cons of the 401k. And we have this recent article that talks about the fact that maybe the 401k is not as advantageous as it once was, given the changes that we've seen over the last 30 years. But Chris, I know that the 401k is a big area where the majority of Americans have the majority of their retirement dollars. So obviously a lot of utilization, a lot of questions to go along with that. And if people want answers or guidance of what to do with their 401k, I know that you are there helping to provide that guidance, being a resource to savers and investors across Northwestern Ohio.
Yeah, we're happy to do that, Peter. We built a pretty successful business here, assisting folks with all their retirement issues, let's call it that. Some folks have saved very well. They don't have to worry about having enough money. They might have tax issues. So that's what I was referring to. And, as we go through 2021 here, I think, everybody wants to get back on track from the pandemic. We got the vaccines rolling out now. We're all looking toward brighter days. And, you and I certainly want to get back where we're in front of people here more often as well as in our normal practice. But, getting back on track here means, a lot of folks that are listening today maybe have a lot of money sitting in cash because they didn't spend it on travel and things like that last year. They may have been afraid to put money into the stock market last year. So again, some of that money in their 401k may be very conservatively invested and are looking forward to, all right, how do we get back? What should I start doing now? Should I throw it all in one lump sum? Should I ladder my way back into the stock market? And, should I max out my 401k or should I just put enough money in to get the match? And should I look at other tax incentive plans that might be available for me as well? So number of different issues out there for all of us, myself included.
Well, if you need help or assistance or guidance with those 401k questions, what to do with your 401k, how much should you be contributing? Are you on track to get to the point that you need to be to retire comfortably? Chris McIntire can help you answer and address all of those questions and issues. Give a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, and you can get a game plan for retirement in your hands. A nice, concise, consolidated plan. Even does that 401k analysis as part of that plan, can help you review and analyze your choices and options, make recommendations there. But how much you're paying in fees, how much you're paying in taxes, how to control those expenses and keep more of your money, all part of the planning process there at McIntire Retirement Services, and that game plan for retirement that you can get in your hands. Pick up the phone, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. But Chris, this article from Financial Advisor magazine kind of calls into question, is the 401k plan the plan that makes the most sense for savers these days? And it brings up a couple interesting points. It says when the 401k was incepted and really gaining traction and popularity in the early 80s, the marginal federal income tax rate was 43%. Today it's 12%. Capital gains tax rates was 28%. Today, a lot of savers and investors pay zero in capital gains, and the likely retirement tax bracket or tax rate in 1980 was 15%. Today, it's 12%. So it calls into question, given this change in our conditions, is the 401k still something that makes sense? And when I read the article, I actually said, well, they're not talking about the 401k per se. They're actually questioning whether tax deferral makes sense in today's environment. And the 401k, for a lot of us, has some options and choices there. And that's actually what you were talking about with the tax savings that you help people identify. So what's your take on those points? And is the 401k still a useful tool given the change in situations we've had?
Taxation is key to any sort of retirement plan. And what number did you use there? Previously, it was what, 43%?
Yeah,
was
the marginal
rate?
federal income tax rate in 1980, 43%. Today, 12%. So we've had a big drop as we were told we would when we started saving in our 401ks.
Sure. And, so should we still be doing the same thing now in today's tax environment that people have been doing for the last 25, 30 years? And we've been talking on the show here, on numerous times there, about why are we still doing the same thing? Tax rates are lower now, not higher. How much lower can they go from 12%? Probably not a lot lower, you would think. We get, a lot of significant deductions and things like that. It's an incredibly tax-friendly environment. And as, powers in Washington and different state governments, ebb and flow over time and go from one party to the next to stay politically neutral here. Those things will also change. So, for having folks that, want to plant the seed of retirement. So think like you're a farmer. Okay. We're up here in Northwest Ohio, corn and soybean all over the place. So, would I rather pay tax on the individual seed and then reap an entire harvest, which fills train cars and things like that, income tax free? Or would I rather not pay tax on the seed, but pay tax on the entire harvest? Is the way you've got to look at it. And, I think, Peter, you and I, and many years we've been doing this radio show, we always are questioning, why are so many people still doing the same thing, even though the economic environment has changed or the tax environment has changed significantly in the favor of the U.S. middle class.
Right. Yeah. And if the status quo is remaining the same, but the environment around us has changed so dramatically, as this article points out, is that still the right thing? And Chris, if we look forward, where will taxes go from here? I mean, they've come down significantly. So we were told and taught to do the right thing going back 20 or 30 years. But from today, I think that growth and accumulation has been the key to get to this point for many of us that are transitioning to retirement now or within the near future. I think tax management is going to be the pinnacle of future success.
Oh, no question about it, Peter. I deal with a lot of folks that, worked in middle-class America, and did well, lived within their means, and they retire with $1.5 million in a 401k, for example. That's an incredible amount of money. I've been in this business so long. I remember when we used to see $1 million, it was like, holy cow, that's amazing. And that's every day, all day now. It's not that big of a deal, which is a testament to this wonderful country that we all live in. And then I get an email from clients that say, doggone, I got all this money in my IRA now, and it made my Medicare expenses my Medicare premiums went up. So there's a lot of different loopholes that, the average investor or saving for retirement doesn't really understand that, hey, I'm saving all the money I can right now, and then realizing, oh, I've got to walk through all these pitfalls once I get through retirement. So my Medicare premiums aren't, $400 a month,
Yeah.
So
kind of gotchas that we don't realize, we aren't taught about as we are deferring and delaying that tax bill, kicking it down the road. We'll pay those taxes later. Oh, by the way, when you pay those taxes later in retirement, when you're making those withdrawals, it's going to cause your Social Security to also be taxed at a higher rate, and it's going to cause your Medicare premiums to be higher, essentially means tested. And so, Chris, we're not told about these things, but it's really a triple whammy because we've got the taxation itself and then the compounding effect on our Social Security and Medicare benefits.
Yes. And I was listening to someone on one of the business channels here recently. It was a guy, he made a boatload of money on Bitcoin, a Bitcoin billionaire. They've been in the forefront here in the last 60 to 90 days here.
Sure, that shot back up.
Yeah, and the gentleman, he actually ran for president this year. He was just testing the waters to go through the procedural pieces, and his name eludes me right now.
Andrew Yang.
Yep. And his name, and he said that in the year 2020, that the United States created 25% of all the dollars that have ever been created, debt spending, if you will, selling bonds to get money into the market. And, if you think about that, those things have to be paid off at some point. And look at where the deficit is. And the government raises money by doing two things: increasing taxation, okay, or reducing spending. I'll leave it at that.
They don't reduce spending too often. Well, again, as we are personally saving for retirement, we've got to take these considerations into account. We've got to carefully examine our expectations for what those taxes will be into the future. Could they go up? Is now the time to do some proactive planning? So again, I liked this article in the fact that it questioned whether continuing to do the same thing in the status quo was still in our best interest. But I think that it was pointing out more the tax implications rather than the 401k itself, because Chris, I do believe that the 401k offers us many advantages. However, if taxes even remain the same, let's assume that they don't go up, but if they remain the same, or even if they drop, growth on our money being the goal, then if we double our money, the tax bill gets larger as a result. So again, it's kind of, to me, easier to pay that bill while we're earning a paycheck rather than try to budget that bill out of our retirement nest egg when we're no longer earning a paycheck. So I know that you agree and you help people really review and analyze that tax liability, Chris, and you have lots of strategies that can help them reduce or control that better.
We certainly do. And remember, the Secure Act that passed at the end of 2020 also said that, people that pass away and the kids are the beneficiaries of IRA accounts, they got to empty those accounts within 10 years at whatever income tax rates they're in, where previously they could stretch those distributions out over the remaining life expectancy. Man, that's a huge difference or potentially a huge difference in how much money is actually going to get distributed, because most of the people that are listening to the show today aren't going to die with a zero balance and make the check to the funeral home bounce, which is the ideal estate plan, right?
Yeah. My dad told me he was going to bounce his last check. I said, just make sure it's the last one you need to write. That was his plan. So
exactly.
But not a lot of us time that exactly perfectly.
You're absolutely right, Peter. And, we're not here disparaging the 401k side of things. We're saying, look, there are many other tax pieces to look at: Roth 401ks, Roth IRAs, converting money from traditional IRAs into Roth IRAs, the cash value elements that life insurance can provide for you as a living benefit, not as a death benefit. And then throw in the long-term care elements that life insurance policies have in place today. So a number of different ways to create a more diversified retirement plan, not just an investment plan, because at some point that money's going to have to come out of there one way or another. And, it's hard to beat zero as a tax rate.
Absolutely. And Chris, you mentioned the Roth 401k. That is becoming more widely available, something that you have talked about and often encouraged people to explore or to utilize and participate in. One of the reasons why the 401k is still a beneficial tool.
Absolutely. And, you can talk to your HR department if they have not got that element in place here. It is 2021, for crying out loud. You would think that, most of the larger employers are going to have that Roth 401k option as well. You still get the match, you still get all the benefits there. You're just paying tax on the seed. And, we got some folks out here listening today that obviously are in a very high income tax bracket. and they may be in a lower tax bracket in the retirement. We're not telling anybody to abandon what they had been doing. You need to get some consultation and understand what are the benefits to all of these elements. And, you can be the world's greatest investor, but if you're given, an extra 25% to the US government, what different, are you really winning the game, I guess? So incorporating the investment side with the taxation side, how do you create income streams out of those pieces in retirement? Because most folks listening today, myself included, you as well, Peter, we're going to have to create our own pensions in our retirement. We grew up, we did our entire working career on living off of our income. What makes you think retirement's going to be any different? And, most folks out here have been putting money, they've been investors, they've been in the accumulation phase of money for the last 30, 40 years in many cases. Now, all of a sudden, they've got to transition into the distribution phase of money, which can be certainly a different mentality than what got you there.
Well, if you've got questions about how to make that transition or calculating the amount you need to retire comfortably or how to turn that lump sum into efficient income to support your retirement, Chris McIntire can help you answer those questions. Pick up the phone, give him a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Chris, this program being about the pros and cons of the 401k, we'd probably be remiss if we did not mention the match that is available with most people's 401k. Always take advantage of that. However, as you mentioned, the pension not being around or nearly as common any longer, one of the downsides of the 401k is that it does not by itself mimic the predictability of income that the pension once offered.
Yeah, that's correct. And there have been some legislative changes that, may streamline that process in the future, with the ability to add an annuity inside your 401k platform. But, we haven't seen many companies adapt to that just yet. So it's still going to fall on your shoulders to create that lifetime income for you and your spouse, for those of you that are married. Peter, I just did a Zoom review with a client this past week, and he worked in one of the trades. He was a carpenter, worked in the union the union for the carpenters, and guy was lucky. He started there basically right out of high school, retired at age 50, and got his pension. But he's 8 years into it now. And his concern was what we talked about this week was inflation. He says, I've been getting the same paycheck since I was age 50. Yeah. I'm going to get the same paycheck when I'm 70. Well, at 3% inflation, which is usually pretty tame, he's going to need twice as much money in 24 years to do the same thing he's been doing when he was 50.
So essentially he's got 16 years left until that income would have needed to double. And the pension, while providing that baseline of stability, Chris, does not typically adjust for inflation. Another downside there that we need to address in most typical retirement plans is they don't include a lot of inflation protection. That's why you're a proponent and an advocate to build in increasing income through that specific income planning phase and that process. That's part of your review and part of that game plan for retirement is helping people identify where they can have that increasing income throughout retirement.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to have some increasing income to keep pace with the cost of living adjustments? We all certainly would. And, a big part of our practice and what we had put in place for the client I was just referring to 7 years ago was an annuity that once he's had it for 10 years, will give him a baseline of income, and it will increase by the growth of the annuity every single year for life, for as long as he and his wife are alive. So, thankfully we met early on and we were able to put a hedge in place for them. So, he's like, that made perfect sense. We made a fair rate of return on it. We use it as a safe money position for him. It's one of those that doesn't have a direct stock market exposure. And then, some of these annuities have the ability, if you leave it in there for a certain time, you get a nice income out of it. That income can also increase. You can have a benefit for your spouse, so they don't even take any reduction in pay, a perfect fit in his situation there. And who wouldn't want to have increasing income in their retirement? So yes, we do a lot of that. It's part of the foundation probably of what we do, Peter.
Well, again, if you need help and assistance with that, if you'd like to know how to create that more predictable, reliable, durable stream of income in retirement, how to translate and transition the lump sum that you've saved to calculate how much income you can generate and count on, pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Again, Chris, this being a program about the pros and the cons of the 401k, double-edged sword here. The 401k is automatic and systematic. It gets us saving out of sight, out of mind, so we know it happens. On the other hand, that same quality, we almost forget to do some of the routine maintenance that leads to long-term financial success.
Yeah, some of them are set it and forget it, kind of, if you will, Peter. And, especially if you're raising kids and, you're working 2 jobs, or you're working, your wife's working, it can be difficult to, put a disciplined approach in place that helps you rebalance. The nice thing on a 401k is, you get paid every 2 weeks. So they take a little bit of money out of that paycheck and add it to your 401k. They call that dollar cost averaging. So you're buying, more on the troughs than you are on the peaks, which is perfect, which is a wonderful concept. It's one of the few win-wins that are out there for investors and employers. But you do need to rebalance. You don't want to get your stocks so far ahead of your, let's say, your bond position, just to speak in generalities here on the show, where, the stock market has gone up 60%, the bond market only went up 10. That means you have a lot more money in stocks than you would bonds. So you want to make sure that you're rebalancing that. Some of those retirement lifestyle funds that are, so very common now in retirement plans, because it seems it's the default check mark that people do. Well, I'm going to retire in 2030, so I'm going to check that box. That's where I want my money to go. It should be safe by the time I get to 2030 is kind of the way people think about it. That's the paradigm that they have. And they don't realize how much of that money may still be in stocks in 2030 than bonds, and you need to understand how those things work. They adjust according to the calendar, not necessarily according to the economic environment going on. So they're not going to pull out if they see the market going into a bear market, if you will. They're just going to adjust because the calendar flipped to another month, if you will.
They have a predetermined algorithm for how they adjust risk over time rather than actually adjusting for real world conditions. And that's the advantage, Chris, of working with somebody that can give proactive advice and rebalancing on an ongoing basis, is that you actually make those adjustments based on real world conditions. Chris, I know that always the language is past performance cannot dictate future results, but we can learn lessons from the past. And in the Great Recession, 2007 and 2008, one of the largest funds by volume of dollars invested was a 2010 target date fund. I know you've talked about this before on the program, that fund 2 to 3 years out from its intended target date for retirement during the Great Recession lost about 32%. So imagine being 2 years out from your intended target date for retirement and losing about a third of your money. That's what's happened before in some of these funds. And because by law they have to stay invested, that could absolutely happen again.
You're absolutely right, Peter. And, life is not an algorithm. And, 2007 and 2008, a great example. In 2020, another great example of, life is what happens to plan. So, set it and forget it is not something that we would advocate that folks do. And, as you get into retirement, we like safe money strategies. I have some clients that are incredibly aggressive investors, but they want to have their safe money here so that if something happened in like an '08, for example, and the market tanked, that they can go over here and pull off of their safe money and let that recover. And, who wouldn't want that? How is that not a good plan to have in place? It might not be the typical Wall Street mentality, 60-second commercial that we hear all the time on all the different channels and whatnot, that, look, there's more to retirement than stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, folks.
Well, again, Chris, talking about the pros and cons of the 401k, one of the things that we have to realize is we've got limited choices and options inside of that 401k. It's kind of a preset menu. You only get to choose from what the plan has pre-selected for you. You can't go out and shop the broad spectrum of the financial world, which offers many other choices and options for us. And that's why, Chris, at certain points in time, when we have the opportunity, doing that rollover, taking personal control, whether we've left an old 401k behind or we're doing an in-service distribution, those are just a couple opportunities to take control and have more choices and options and begin proactively to better position ourselves for retirement.
You're right, Peter. And that in-service distribution Peter referenced, and you hear us talk about that a lot on the show, is you're still working and you pull part of your 401k out and roll that over into an IRA, not a taxable event there whatsoever. So when we say you hear us say in-service distribution, we're not talking about just taking a lump sum of money out for the heck of it. We're talking about a tax-free roll or a tax-deferred rollover.
Not a non-taxable event. Now, not hard to do, right, Chris? Not hard to do, but absolutely something that you don't want to mess up on. And that's why savers and investors are often encouraged to consult with their financial professional before making any of those large transactions, such as a rollover or an in-service distribution, because there are some rules and we got to make sure that we do it right.
You're right. And, we hire a third-party consultant that when we run into questions and things like that we want to have, that we have a direct contact with an IRA expert.
And if you need help, if you need assistance, if you would like to make sure that you're executing that correctly, but that you are opening up the window to better choices and options for your retirement dollars, that you're beginning to better position those for your purposes in retirement, pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Now, Chris, as opposed to like our IRA, the 401k has much higher contribution limits. It's a place where we can save significantly more money each year. But there are certain cases where we do run into those limits as well. And people are looking for other places to save money. And as always, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. The 401k should not be the only place that you are saving money for your future.
You're absolutely right. You're going to want a tax-free bucket in all likelihood. And some folks are very good savers. The house is paid off. The kids are through college, and the income they have coming in, they have more discretionary dollars. And where do they shift those dollars? Do they, just park them in the bank? Do they open a brokerage account on the taxable side? Do they look at Roth IRAs? Do they look at cash value life insurance, for example? Or even some tax efficient investment strategies, using some nice high quality exchange traded funds that don't have a lot of turnover. And again, not generating passive tax is what we would call that. Not paying tax on money you're not spending.
Absolutely. And Chris, you help people again set that up and execute that. If somebody has a question of what do I do with my money once I'm done with my 401k, that's just one of the reasons why they would give you a call and come and see you.
Absolutely. Yep. And we look forward to that. We'd have full Zoom capabilities here until we get on the other side of the pandemic. We do some in-person things as well, somewhat on limited basis. I think everybody's comfortable with that, especially in the winter time here. We're not like you can leave the windows wide open. So, and Peter, I'll tell you, I'm a pretty big germaphobe anyway.
Well, if one thing, Chris, this pandemic has pushed us all into being a little bit more comfortable, I think, with technology. And I think nothing beats the look somebody in the eye and be able to shake their hand. But as close as we can get these Zoom calls, even how we are recording the radio program and the video portion of the podcast today, technology has been a wonderful tool for keeping us in touch and continuing to at least be able to have some kind of personal relationships.
It certainly has, and it saved me a lot on dress clothes this year too. I'll say that.
Only have to dress up from the waist up. It's nice.
That's for sure. And we appreciate everybody listening, and have a safe weekend here. And I'll let Peter send us out.
Well, as always, a pleasure speaking with Chris McIntire. He's looking forward to hearing from you. If you've got questions or concerns, if you'd like to get that plan put together, I encourage you to give Chris a call. He does not charge for his time. There's never any cost or obligation. There's really no downside to getting that plan put together. And that's exactly what Chris will do for you and with you. He will get a plan put together, a game plan for retirement in your hands. It will help you identify priorities, action items, a timeline for execution, the fees that you're paying, the taxes that you'll be liable for, how to generate that lifetime income, the risks that you're taking with your money and that you are exposing your lifestyle to into the future, and steps for how to address those issues. Pick up the phone and give Chris a call to take him up on that offer, or even just to ask a couple simple, quick, direct questions. He always looks forward to hearing from listeners to the program. 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. You can also go online, McIntireRetirementServices.com, McIntireRetirementServices.com, or once again, give a call, get that game plan for retirement in your hands today. Chris offering to put that together for you for free. 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Always a pleasure, Chris. We appreciate you being here as our resource.
My pleasure. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Visit McIntireRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.
Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Indexed or fixed annuities are not designed for short-term investments and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract.